Hi, everyone. I'm Chris Wong, Head of Developer Resources here at Mapbox, and I want to welcome you to this Mapbox Dev Jam. These sessions are conversations with developers about building with Mapbox. Sometimes my guests are colleagues at Mapbox, sometimes we have special guests from our wider development community, and sometimes it'll just be me and some of my peers actually building things. Our focus on these chats is practical, so we want to get into the details of the experience of building with Mapbox. We'll look at code, map styles, architecture, and we'll discuss API calls and troubleshooting. And we're always on the lookout for new guests and topics. So if you're interested in sharing how you build with Mapbox, please connect with me. Today we're looking at a fun seasonal project, building a Santa Tracker web app. This Santa Tracker was built during the 2023 holiday season as a festive internal volunteer project to celebrate the holidays. Joining me are colleagues from across Mapbox who teamed up to build this fun project together, first last December and again for this year. So let's go around and get some introductions. We'll start with Billy Bryant.
Hey, yeah. So I'm Billy Bryant. I joined into this group from the security team, and I largely did it because I'm in charge of application security, and I wanted to learn a little bit more about how to build with Mapbox. So this was my way of learning how to build.
Excellent. And then we have Bill Morris from the Raster team.
Yeah, I'm a geospatial software engineer with Mapbox. I primarily work with aerial and satellite imagery, but I also love doing some data munging, and this provided an awesome opportunity to work on that.
Excellent. And Daniel, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I'm Daniel Ecke, working on the rendering features Mapbox. And I'm also located in Finland, which is coincidentally the home of Santa. So I'm kind of an expert on this subject.
The home of Santa. Excellent. Okay. And then finally, we have Kieran McAn. Kieran, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, hey everyone. My name is Kieran. I'm coming live from the North Pole today. Yeah, I actually work on our business team. I'm not a developer by trade, but I thought this would be a cool experience to try my hand at, and we, built this together over the course of last year. So it was a great project.
Excellent. All right. So it's great because we have a collection of people from around the company, and not all of you work exclusively or at all on front end things and on building the actual finished products and user interfaces. So it's great to see everyone come together and tinker a little bit and come up with something that looks like it is a very polished finished product. So let's jump right into it. Kieran, if you don't mind giving us a quick demo of the Santa Tracker, and you can start talking through how the team started to collaborate on it, what inspired it, where this project came from. So you want to take it away? I think Billy was going to share and do the screen share during the demo.
Yeah, sure. So this really came together organically last year, really through a Slack VM and then turned into a Slack channel internally. So I was just sitting around over the weekend one day, close to this time of year last year, right at the end of December. And I was thinking, there's all these Santa trackers out there, and Mapbox is a map company. We had just released our globe feature that you can see here. And we didn't have a Santa tracker. So I thought it would be a fun project to get some people together from Mapbox and see what we could do, just kind of throwing some things together. And we've got a lot of good expertise at the company on just getting these types of projects off the ground. So it really started with not really having any vision or what we were going to do. We were just talking about ideas, sharing some concepts of what we wanted to do. And then I decided to just get going pretty quickly, and I've got some basic novice level front end development, CSS, HTML. But I decided maybe what I can do is use ChatGPT to help me kind of get the idea started, get things going, and start the initial prototype. So I actually was able to get most of that Mapbox experience going with just some basic prompts and questions in ChatGPT. It can pull in a lot of the Mapbox documentation, which is really thorough. So you can get started with most projects without a lot of experience, even if you've never used Mapbox before. So I was able to get something going, was able to go into Mapbox Studio and do some basic design work, which anyone can do if you're not a coder. And then we got that first version out, and I shared it with the group in our Slack channel. called Santa Tracker. And we were able to then iterate and complete that design and really polish it up over the next maybe week or so. So we went from idea to finished product in about a week, which is typical of some of these kind of quick and dirty Mapbox projects. But we were able to get some really cool features in there because, you know, there were other members of the team that had some really cool ideas that we were able to integrate. So you can kind of see the overall finished product here. It's got some quirky elements to it, like the globe that you can see. So we've got the snow effect, and we'll talk about that a bit. But in here, we're actually looking at a Mapbox snow globe, and then you can see the Earth and where Santa is at each position. He'll go to each city and then drop a present showing that he's been to that location. And you know, we'll go into a little bit more detail on how it works, but this is supposed to be a really quick way for you to be able to see where Santa would be at a given location based on that time of day. You can simulate it going forward, or you can preview it or run it live on Christmas Eve and see where he would be.
So when it's running live, does it, I mean, is that only for 24 hours, or how long does it take for Santa to actually hit all these locations?
So yeah, if you do it live, it should run in real time based on, you know, the timing of where he would be using some of the tracker APIs that we have built into this. So if you were to check, I think the first locations that drop are out there in the very kind of eastern part of the globe there. And if you were to check that around Christmas Eve, it would be live if you were to do that. So yeah, we can talk about that a bit. I know we kind of had some logistical things we were trying to figure out how to make this real time. But yeah, the preview of the route works any time of year. So
Awesome. Okay, so yeah, if you're just viewing it right now, the URL should work, and if it's not actually on Christmas Eve, just hit that that route preview, and you should be able to see, you know, what it would look like on Christmas Eve. Okay, this is great fun, and like I said, looks very polished, looks very festive. It's got the nice winter theme going on, plus this like kind of image background and the snow globe effect. So everything looks great. But let's transition now into talking about the data. So I think this was your area of expertise, Bill. And you know, let us know what goes into the data behind getting this Santa tracker to work. How do we decide which path he travels, that sort of thing.
Let me unmute for a sec there. Yeah. So basically, it's worth giving a bit of background about what the Santa tracker is. And our GitHub repo that covers this includes a bit of the background, but the basic legend of this is that there was a misprint of a phone number in a advertisement around Christmas time, 1955 in Colorado Springs. A department store wanted an opportunity for children to be able to call in and leave messages for Santa. The misprint apparently redirected them to the Continental Air Defense Department that was, you know, located in Colorado Springs as well. And the military folks there, instead of being exasperated that all these children were calling them, started giving them updates on Santa's location based on, you know, the advanced radar and sophisticated tracking systems that they had available. NORAD took this over when it came into existence in 1958, and ever since then, they have been operating a volunteer call center for people to take calls from kids who want to know where Santa is, and they'll report it back to them. In the internet age, that has turned into a fairly sophisticated web operation as well. NORAD operates that every year. And Google was one of their partners for a while. And in the course of that, in 2015, they took what was NORAD's sort of official route for Santa every year, and you can see it sort of detailed in the repo here, and turned it into a piece of JSON text, just a blob that anybody is able to use. They open sourced it. And so we have adapted it ourselves in this case. All it required was a bit of good old-fashioned Python JSON transformation. For instance, this bit here is basically converting any of the dates that are in that 2015 file that Google open sourced of the route, converting those dates to the present. So something that's important to know is that based on how the Earth turns, when it's daylight, when it's nighttime, when it's Christmas Eve, in various places, the entire duration of the route runs from 10 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time on the 24th to 11 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time on the 25th of December. So all the stops between then, between here and there, are hit along the way. So just to see what that looks like, this is the structure of the data that goes into the Santa tracker. So it's got an arrival timestamp, departure timestamp, Unix timestamp there. As it happens, the North Pole does not appear to have a population, but as you go further down the list, you start encountering places that do have population, and then you start to see presence and counts of how many of those have been delivered along the way. Something that's worth noting here as well is that this is a series of points, and I think this is something that the other folks will discuss a little bit going forward. These points turn into a route. So the way that that can look, if you convert that into, actually, I'm having a little bit of trouble with this.
But all right,
Yeah.
there you go.
So the way this looks initially is you start at the North Pole and you start proceeding down the route that NORAD indicates down along the way here. But what's interesting is this is the international date line. And if you have a route that traverses from one location here to the next closest populated location, it might be on the other side of the date line. So a route might end up looking kind of like this, where instead of proceeding from here directly to here, you go all the way around the globe to get to the other side. So this is something that the folks who worked on this, and actually the folks who work on Mapbox GL generally, have come up with some really good ways of getting around this so that the route ends up looking a little bit more sane like this. But the point here is that we have this great access to a machine readable route. We just update it for the present day, for the present year, and then it allows us to see Santa more or less traversing up and down in these sweeps as the globe steadily turns and proceeds from Christmas Eve to Christmas Day. Yeah, I think, and I'll hand it off.
Sorry, a couple more questions about the data. So did this end up being, is this loaded at runtime into the actual app, or did it go into a studio style, or how does it actually, how is this actually parsed and used by the app?
Yeah, so this file right here, this JSON route file is parsed live on the client. It's actually fairly small. There are a few, I think a few hundred destinations around the globe, but this is a fairly lightweight file. So this is loaded every time somebody loads the Santa tracker, and it'll, position it based on what the given time of day is, if it's somewhere between Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. Otherwise, it'll just run the preview sequentially, one after another. But it's not even strictly our favorite file format, GeoJSON. It's not that exact representation of geospatial data in JSON, but it's lightweight and sufficient to the purpose here because it's proceeding from point to point.
Excellent. And can I go, so I noticed it's not in GeoJSON, so I assume you're doing some conversions in the client in order to get it to play well with GLJS. But for actually animating the route between these points, I assume you're also interpolating using turf to actually get a line between them so you can follow that line. Does that sound right?
Yes, and I'm actually going to let my colleagues discuss that because that was their component for making that work.
Okay, excellent. But still, very good to understand kind of the underlying data, and then now we know the kind of platform or foundation we have to work on when we're building the front end. So, okay, that's great. Let's move on to design. So we're going to go back to Kieran McAn. So I guess, yeah, tell us a little bit about the engaging design that you built here, kind of what went into it, what went into your color choices and your layout choices, the map style, etc. Think you're still muted. Give us a quick break. Give us a pause once you unmute, and then start again.
Yeah, thanks. So like any good design, there was a lot of debate and discussion on what this should really look like. We had some initial designs, and we were always trying to go for that kind of holiday feel. But you know, I took an initial stab at it, and the green and red doesn't always look as good as it does in your head when you actually translate it. It kind of looks like a big bauble rather than a holiday globe. So we actually kind of looked at some of the other kind of winter themed designs that we've seen at Mapbox, from some of our customers that do ski maps or just kind of general mountain aesthetics. And we kind of landed on doing something a little bit more in this kind of theme where you're really looking at more of a snowscape, and that really worked with the snow effects that we added on later. So if you zoom in on the tracker, you can go all the way down to you know, these lower zoom levels and see the terrain, some of the features there, and all of the fonts are kind of in the same theme. And then if you look at the kind of globe, it looks a little bit better than the green striking design before. It's more subtle. It's more winter focused. It's got the snow on there, so it all kind of comes together. But yeah, we landed on this and kind of did some tweaks. Some of our design team helped, you know, bring some of this together, making sure that all of the colors sort of ramped properly and worked together. And again, this was inspired by some of the other winter or ski or mountain maps that we have out there already. So yeah, that's everything on the design
Sorry,
front.
as you mentioned earlier, that's all done in Mapbox Studio, right? So designers can go in and start just using the user interface to select colors and select the width of, you know, lines and things like that, right?
Yeah, so everything's done in studio. It was all polished up there. We were able to share that style between a couple of us and iterate. And then once you have a finalized style, you can take that and put it into the implementation and run that, and then it will pull the style from studio and then use that as the core style for the map. But you could switch out the style at any point you wanted to. Like Bill showed earlier, the satellite view of the globe, you could easily switch it to that if you wanted to. It really just depends on what your overall theme that you're going for is with any map design. So
Great.
cool.
Is there any more you want to say on the design?
One thing that I was going to add when we were looking at the code earlier, that same GeoJSON has the population stats for each city. So what we actually did as well, if you look in the corner of the tracker, there's a little dashboard that shows some interesting stats as Santa drops off more presents. So it'll show presents delivered. It will show the lumps of coal delivered, which is sort of a ratio of the, you know, presents. There's like maybe 10% of kids that are bad. We had a debate on what should that ratio be. It depends on the year, I guess. And then we also had cookies consumed and glasses of milk consumed. So all of those were in that. And we were able to look at the population and kind of add a randomizer to kind of simulate what that would look like. We can't get the real stats in real time from Santa. So we had to kind of infer some things.
I see. Sorry, can you say that again? So lumps of coal and cookies eaten are not in the data, and we're just kind of adding those, or they are in the data, or we're
Well, we were looking at the population of each location and then adding to the tracker a cumulative score based on each population as he goes. So
I see. Okay, so it's based on population and some of our own predictive algorithm on
yeah.
good kids, good kids and bad kids. Okay, wonderful. All right, thank you for that. And let's move on to talk about the actual build process. So that'll be both Daniel and you again, Kieran, to give us some insight on how this thing actually gets built. So everyone here is in different time zones, spread out around the world, and you know has various different skill sets to contribute to this project. So how did it all come together? How did we get this thing to exist in a very short time with a very distributed team?
Oh,
Yeah, go ahead,
sorry.
Daniel.
No, please start.
I was
Can
gonna,
edit
yeah, I was
this out.
gonna say, well, a lot of this was async over Slack. So we weren't you know, setting up Zoom meetings and going over this for like hours at a time. A lot of it would be, you know, when you have some free time at the end of the day, you work on it a little bit, you add a little bit of momentum to the project, and then you log off. And you know, Daniel's in a totally different time zone, so he'd pick it up when maybe I'd stop working on it or some of the other folks here would stop working on it. So there was always somebody tinkering with it. And then you'd wake up in the morning and you'd check Slack and they'd be like, oh, yeah, I did this little new thing or added this feature. And then it was always moving the ball forward. So we were actually able to move pretty quickly, which is sort of the experience in Mapbox where we're always working across time zones anyway. So there's always somebody tinkering with it, moving a project forward, which is always an interesting experience. And it does work async pretty well. So I don't know if Daniel has the same experience, but that's what I thought.
Yeah, like the way you described it, it kind of reminds me of how Santa works. So you write a message, kind of like a wish list. So someone wrote me that they want to have this snowfall effect. Then you go to sleep, and next day, if you were a good kid, then you will get the effect. So maybe Santa is also in a different time zone. That's why you have to write the messages.
Exactly. I agree with that. And sometimes you get a lump of coal, you don't know where you're going to wake up.
And were you using like a normal kind of pull request and review flow? Were you asking for someone to review some new content? Were you writing like a detailed description about what you're contributing, or was it a little more casual? Like how did that work?
It varied depending on what feature we were looking at. And a lot of the times it would be, hey, I have an idea, let's try something like this. And then in Slack, there would be sort of a brainstorming session where it was like, oh, we could do this, or well, that approach is a little bit complex for what we're trying to do here. Maybe we could do something simpler like A, B, or C. And then we sort of landed on something. And sometimes there would be a debate, and sometimes it'd be like, I just did this. What do you think of this? So it was either, some brainstorming or just like throwing ideas out there and getting it rolling and seeing how everyone thought about it. So a little bit of both. But yeah, and then sometimes when we were actually making changes to the actual code towards the end and we're getting a little bit more polished, we would have additions to the GitHub, pull requests, things like that. So
Excellent. And was it, I guess, did you put it on staging? Did you get feedback from others in the company before, moving forward on certain features, or how did that work?
well, my initial work was all just in a code pen that I was sharing, and I was just doing like a V2, V3 in code pen and sharing that. So that's not exactly the most sophisticated way of change management. But then as the team started looking at it, we put it into a more formal structure where we had the repo so that anyone that was making a smaller change or a smaller polish or a detail fix, we could have that in a more structured way, so we weren't doing like V12 of the Santa tracker. So
All right. Okay, so we're gonna move on to we're gonna talk to Billy about again more how the project was built, but we're gonna talk more about the animation of Santa actually moving along the route and the globe view a little bit. So Billy, you want to take it away?
Sure. In the preview that you can see right now, you can actually see Santa moving along. And when in the very early iterations, Santa was very jittery, bounced around quite a bit, and didn't actually stay on the screen the entire time. So you saw Santa teleporting quite a bit, and the globe kind of jumped back and forth, a little jittery, made the animation really, really hard to watch if you watched it for a long period of time. So I actually just did a little bit of searching from my own and came across a blog post that Chris that you wrote that was actually able to help me with, and there we go, here we go. So building cinematic route animations, I was able to use some of the code examples here, which I believe this one was particularly about tracking the Tour de France. And so I was able to use some of the code animation or code that was used here. And instead of building a cinematic route, used some of that code to smooth out Santa's route, make the points jumping from location to location a little smoother, and actually allow it to follow the real route. We also built in a little bit of code to smooth out the GeoJSON. As it was pointed out, the data we get is not exactly GeoJSON, so we have to actually compute that in the back end. So I added some code in to help with figuring that out and actually drawing the line in real time. So the line that he's following is being drawn on the screen as it's animating. So it's kind of interesting. The data points aren't GeoJSON to begin with, and they're kind of computed in real time to build that GeoJSON route and follow it as he moves around the globe. So that was a little bit of the smoothing out to make it a little bit of a nicer experience to watch Santa actually to make his route over.
All right, excellent. So let's move on. We'll talk a little bit about the snow. So I think Daniel is going to talk about this, but there's a slight snowfall effect, and I think there might be a little hidden gem if you shake the snow globe. Maybe if people hadn't discovered that, but let us know what it took to get this snow effect.
Yes. So let's go to the page again a little bit. So yeah, as you mentioned, if you shake the map, it kind of shakes the snow globe as it's supposed to. This is like this tiny Easter egg that I added there. And actually the whole like snow effect was done with a little bit of unorthodox way of using our maps. So the whole center part is rendered with our map engine. And this is actually a couple of raster layers on top of each other. So if you go like pitch the map and then zoom in here, you kind of can see that those layers are just like going down and down continuously and repeating. So there's a couple of layers on top of each other, which are animated and offsetted from the ground. So of course, like this is not like photorealistic, but because usually like snow doesn't fall from the space. And well, but this is like a magical snow globe. So in this one it does. And but regardless, like these kind of raster layers are usually used to display weather information. And we can display like real weather data, for example, like snowfall in different regions with like a kind of like a heat map or particle-based effects. And I use the same tools that we would use for visualizing these weather inputs in the raster layer. But in this case, it was just like a kind of fake data to get this kind of like glittering effect on top of the map. And there's a couple other like hidden tricks here. So as you can see, like if I go closer to the poles, the effect kind of fades out. So it's only really going up to like 85 degrees latitude. And it's because like last year, it was not possible to render the raster layer on top of the pole caps. But just a couple of months afterwards, we actually introduced this feature. So maybe we should update this demo soon. So technically, with the raster layer, you can actually get the layer to be rendered on top of the pole caps in the latest versions. But just to show a little bit of code, like how this comes together. So we have the style itself, which was designed in Studio, and it looks beautiful. And we had a couple more layers to get the snowfall effects, but it's basically just a combination of those layers plus the style itself. So the snow layers are getting created based on like how many like layers do we want for this effect to have in general. So in this case, we have like 10 layers of snow on top of each other just to have this offset and the animation going on with a little bit of blending, and it's more spread out. And for the input, I used basically just a noisy image. And by the way, you can look into the code of the website inspector in the browser. So like developers will figure it out and they will just like see this is not hidden, it's not obfuscated. So they can look into the code if they're interested. So we have these particles spread around in this input file, and it's faded out near the edges. So that way it won't go up all the way to the poles. And that's why it has this like nice transition towards the top. And we load this as a source of this raster layer. But that one, this input, it's a bit hard to see, but it has red and blue pixels. And the reason why I used that is to have a bit of distribution of the different kind of particles. And this glittering is basically happening because we switch between red and blue channels. That's why it goes like this. And when you shake it, it kind of increases both channels and makes it a little bit more dense around the whole map. And so basically we add that layer, and we can shift the colors to be white with the raster color property of the raster layer. we also can map the raster value, which is basically like the strength of the brightness values of those pixels to map it to a different range depending on like how we want to fade out those individual snowflakes. And this is kind of the static part of it. So we add those layers and map the colors. And then we have the animation, which is happening on 3 different properties of that layer. So we have the opacity. So that way, the closer snowflakes get to the ground, the more they get faded out, and then they get placed back on top. So that's why like these 10 layers are basically like looping continuously as they go towards the ground. We also set the elevation, which just basically makes the effect look like that it's falling. And we also set the red and blue channels to have different values depending on how we want to do this like glittering effect and how much we shake the map. So it's only these 3 components which are animated on the raster layer, and it's done entirely with our map rendering engine. Since then, besides the raster layer rendering on the pole cap, we also released a couple more features which could be used to make even nicer looking snow. So one of them is the precipitation feature for higher zoom levels. You can find this in the Mapbox GIGS repository in this example file. This image that I have in my background showcases that. So it looks like actual snowfall, and you can configure like dozens of different properties on it, like the direction of the snowfall, the speed, shape, color, distribution. It's a very specialized tool in the map to display like real-time weather effect, and it also includes rain. So this could be used to, for example, during navigation session to illustrate the weather conditions and actually render it in a photorealistic way. And besides that, we also have now a dedicated particle layer, which can use actual weather information to display weather data on the globe. And this is used by some weather customers to illustrate weather effects all around the globe. So it's evolved a lot since then. This effect was kind of like another trick that we can do with simpler tools. I think it's good enough for visualizing the snow globe, but there's different layers and different configurations how you can make it even more fancier for different use cases.
That's excellent. Can I say that back to you? So it sounds like you have 10 raster layers kind of stacked on top of each other with offset from the ground, and then
Yeah.
you're basically showing and hiding kind of in a transitional way as a snowflake falls. You kind of fade this one out and this one in, and so on and so on to make that animation happen.
Yeah, exactly. So it's basically like a snowflake is rendered 1 layer at a time, but it gets this kind of like horizontal movement also based on the red and blue channels, which is all rendered as a white pixel, but it's mapped with this raster color property of the layer. So it was actually kind of funny because I worked on the raster elevation property of our maps, which was also requested by some weather customers, but I didn't know about how the raster color property works. And this was a fun project to actually kind of dog food our engine and try out and learn like what can we even do with our tools.
Great, and turned out beautiful. So I'm glad we can get this explanation here because I'm sure there's plenty more experimenting and tinkering people may want to do with that kind of effect. Not a traditional use of raster layers. So excellent. Thank you so much for sharing that. Okay, and finally we can talk about launch. So we're going to go back to Billy Bryant. Who's going to tell us about how, what after all the work iterating on this and adding new features and getting it to a finished product, how do we get it out the door? So can you tell us a bit about how this thing actually went live and how it was received?
Yeah, so we did the iterations on it. One of the last things we landed on was building out the globe that you can see because of our nice snow effects. We kind of built out the snow globe with this nice wintry background. It also added in we have a live music, so you can actually kind of listen to a little bit of background music if you want to while you watch it. I pulled it up on my TV last year, and it was really awesome. The site itself is actually really simple. It is just static code. So the site itself is just an HTML static website that loads in all of the information, builds out the design, and then we published it to our labs.mapbox.com website so that anyone could go to it and view it. We actually, I should have pulled the information, but the Mapbox token we used last year was actually from my own account. And we had some really good stats on that for the usage and actual views. The product was published using an internal publishing tool that we use to publish to our own labs website, but it's a very simple website. There's no frills to it. It's not written in anything that not a lot of people haven't already ran across, and it's very simple to publish. You could actually just take the repository as it is today and host it anywhere you can host static HTML, and it would work fine. And that was one of the simple, nice, fun things about it is we didn't have to do a lot of work to really make it a published site. Going through different hosting solutions, it's a very simple solution. And then just kind of shared it out on social media with a bunch of people, and it kind of took off. People internally were enjoying it and sharing it out with their friends. Like I said, I have a picture that I took of my TV at home. My wife and I were watching it on TV as it was playing through and listening to the music, and it was kind of a good background noise for us to enjoy the holiday.
Excellent. So came together, I think you all said in just a couple weeks, or maybe even less than that. So amazing to see this collaborative effort from a team distributed around the world, using our own tools and then also kind of adding these kind of experimental or progressive ways to use the tool, was just wonderful. So yeah, anything else we want to talk about? I think I have one more burning question I forgot to talk about during design, but like we didn't just download this snow globe, right? Somebody designed this. Is this like made in Figma or something? And then this background, where did this come from?
So the snow globe is actually an asset that I purchased, and then I did some tweaks to it to make it transparent and keep the overlay. So the snow globe is actually the one that you see on the screen is actually one image, and it was very difficult to. For anyone who's not familiar, transparency in rendering something live is not very easy in a website, especially a very simple designed website. So the snow globe was kind of an interesting thing to build to get the snow effects on the globe. These nice little effects of the transparency on the globe itself, while still being able to see the map. Got the nice Mapbox logo at the bottom. And then the background is just something I fed into ChatGPT that I wanted kind of a wintry background scape with blues and silvers, and that's what it kind of gave me, and it really, really worked really well when you put it together. We also made it so that if you want to get rid of the snow globe effect, you can. There's a little toggle in the top left-hand corner that will actually get rid of the snow globe, recenter the map so you can see the entire Mapbox map while still keeping the dashboard and the overlay and the toggle for the music, which is up here in the top right-hand corner.
Excellent.
Those things, these small little elements, I kind of added in really last minute just to kind of improve the experience so that people that were using it at home could have a nice fun experience to play around with. The toggle is not always perfect when refreshing, when trying to toggle back to the snow globe itself, but it was pretty fun to be able to get rid of the snow globe if you wanted to see the entire globe view.
Yeah, and I think the globe So I think we came up with the snow globe idea after we added the snow, because we were kind of talking about, wait, how can the snow fall from the sky? And then we said, oh, what if we made it a snow globe? And then that kind of led down a whole rabbit hole of building out that, which Billy just talked about. Sometimes the simplest things are actually a little bit more complicated than you think. But
And this is funny because we were talking about that, and I added the snow effect first. Someone mentioned that it would be nice if it would have this globe around it, and adding that PNG in a perfect position on top of it was actually way harder than adding the effect to the map itself.
exactly.
Yeah, putting the snow globe itself into place was not an easy task. There's a lot of back end figuring out of how big your screen is and how big the image should be drawn and how big the globe, what the boundaries around the globe should be. And if you can tell, we're doing an artificial kind of masking of the globe view so that we can actually show you the rest of the image. And so there's a lot of math that went into that to figure all of that out. It was not easy to put in.
Well, it's great. I mean, we're used to seeing, our interactive maps in rectangles in every form, all over mobile devices and websites. So it's pretty wild to see this kind of placed inside of a pseudo glass bubble. But I think it's a great effect. So excellent work, everyone. Any other closing thoughts, final thoughts before we move on?
I think that if somebody's pulling up the screen right now, you should zoom into some of the kind of mountainous areas to show what the Mapbox terrain layer looks like. I think it looks really great with these winter styles, and you can also see the snow as well. But
Maybe in Switzerland, not
yeah,
necessarily in Russia right now.
Yeah, like the Alps or something.
Or if you go to the northern part of Norway, because in Finland there's not that many.
There we go.
Yeah, you can
Oh,
really.
beautiful.
You can also
And
see.
if you right click, then you can also rotate the map. I like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Gorgeous. Okay. So I think with that, I think we're at time. So I want to thank everyone for watching. I hope this was a useful window into all the different parts that go into building a finished product. It's not just the map. There's data, there's design considerations, there's the full layout. So hopefully this will inspire you and what you're able to build with Mapbox GLJS. Maybe you can build your own Santa tracker or some riff on this idea. And yeah, we want to say thank you for joining us and happy holidays from all of us at Mapbox. And thanks to our guest today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ron.